Use. Okay, sure.
Okay, yeah, here we are, the two worlds meeting each other over the
Yeah.
platforms. This is the Comesa Global Online channels. We are in conversation on the two streaming platforms of Comesa. The first one is the what we call the Comesa Television Network. It is basically our video streaming platform that fits into our Comesa radio worldwide through the audio. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter on which platform you are. Greetings to you over there in India. I'm talking to you from the beautiful South Africa, Johannesburg, Gauteng province to be specific, if you know South Africa. Perhaps before you introduce yourself, just tell us which part of India you are. Mishti, maybe we should start with you.
Thank you so much, Sam, and greetings to you. Thank you for the warm welcome. So, I am based out of Mumbai, and I think Anjani is also in Mumbai. So, we are in the same city in
Wow.
India. Yes.
Wow, we have been receiving some disturbing news about the coronavirus situation. How
Yes.
is it as of now?
So, it is quite bad. The numbers are increasing. We have weekend lockdowns now.
Mhm.
So yes, this is the second wave, and we're trying to hold forth, but it is a little disturbing. But the Mumbai spirit is great,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
this too shall pass.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
the only positive part is that the vaccination speed is going up now, and the government
yeah,
is opening up the vaccination to more people. So we are hoping
yeah,
that with that, I think things should come in control.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Great stuff. Well, yeah, welcome. I look forward to our conversation. This is our applied professional coaching and executive coaching. We have invited you specifically, but I hand over to Mishti just to start the conversation and give you the context why we wanted to have a chat with you. Mishti?
Yes. Thank you so much, Sam. Uh, Hello, and a very warm welcome to all the beautiful listeners who are tuned in. And like I always say, that it doesn't matter where you are, if the time zones are different, if the space is different. What is important is that we are in one world of coaching conversations, one world of learning, one world of resources, and one world of empowering each other with the power of human connection. On that note, I would like to invite our wonderful guest today, Mr. Anjani Kumar. Anjani is a senior human resource leader. He works with MX Player in India. He's been a veteran in this field. He's also a success coach, he's a motivator, and he's also been an entrepreneur. So it's wonderful to tap into his journey and learn more from him. So over to Anjani.
Thank
Anjani,
you.
before we go further, um, I feel that a name has a lot of power in it. And although Shakespeare said that what's in a name after all, but I would like to differ here and try and understand what does Anjani actually mean. In terms of the name, what does Anjani mean, and what does it represent in terms of your personality?
Thank you, Sam and Misty. And it's a pleasure to be on this platform, talking to you guys and talking to so many people, who are connected. And it's my pleasure to be here sharing, whatever little I know. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. Uh, I think before actually we started, even Sam was asking me about my name. So my overall name, Anjani Kumar, it actually comes from our mythology, where it's the name of one of our gods. So our god Hanuman, the monkey god, that's his name. So my name means actually Lord Hanuman. So that's the background of having this name. So that's what it explains. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lord Hanuman is the Lord of power. So Probably, my parents thought that, somewhere,
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
relate to his
Mm.
personality.
I
And
I I always I'm used to seeing Kumar spelled with one U, and at first I thought maybe there was a mistake there. I tried to correct it, and then I was told, no, 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 it is actually how it's written. It's Kumar with two U's.
correct, correct. That's how I've been using it. So, so,
Yeah,
so, yeah,
great stuff.
that's what.
So I looked at your profile, and then I thought, phew, I'm sure we can spend most of the time just understand your journey, where it started, and how did you put together such a comprehensive professional experience, and how is it helping you as of now? Maybe take us through your journey and your learnings so that we can learn from it.
Sure, sure, sure. So, Sam, it was, I come from a very normal lower middle class background from a small town.
Yeah,
And I did my graduation in economics. And thereafter, I was just trying to figure out that what is a good profession to take up, what should I study further. And that is the time, when I decided that I should try for learning management. And I appeared for some of the colleges, and then I was lucky that I got selected by the top business school in India for human resources studies. That's called
yeah,
XLRI. And I got an admission there. And for 2 years, I studied human resources. And that was the time when probably, I really, before that, I had no idea what human resources is. I was like, a normal economics student.
yeah,
But those 2 years were very, very critical. And thereafter, I was lucky to got an opportunity to work with some of the great companies, some of the great multinationals, and some of the great leaders also, some of the great business leaders, CEOs. So I started my company with my journey with a toys company, Metal Toys.
yeah,
So that was very interesting because we used to manufacture Barbie dolls and Hot Wheels. So it was a very interesting environment. I used to work in a factory,
mm,
and I was managing the human resources there. What was great about this job was in the beginning of my career itself, and I was 23 years old. They somehow, I don't know what they saw in me, but they made me the head of human resources for that particular manufacturing factory.
mm,
And it was very tough because when you're young, you don't know anything. Suddenly, there's a lot of responsibility which gets thrown at you, and your managers start believing that you can deliver for them. And that really helped me in terms of build my personality, probably grow much older compared to what my actual age was. I had
yeah,
some 8 people reporting into me who were in their 30s and 40s. So that was the stepping stone. And after that, I got an opportunity to work with ICI, which is the Imperial Chemical Industries, famous
yeah,
British company.
yeah,
And thereafter, I worked with GE, General Electric.
mm,
So these were again some great names. Got to learn a lot from them. And finally, then thereafter, I landed at Sony.
mm,
So where I spent a lot of time in multiple roles, and that was the place where I got an opportunity to move on to the business side. So for a few years, I managed their human resources in India, and thereafter for around 5 years, I was managing various businesses in India and Singapore.
mm,
So which again gave me a very unique perspective. One, in terms of working in different geographies, and two, from a human resources to moving to a business sort of a role. So that was an amazing experience. Uh,
Was
there
this accompanied by you taking studies on business, or it was just learning on the job as you grow in your responsibilities?
So I think always I have operated with an approach to asking my managers to give me more and more. And
Yeah,
So after a few years at Sony, I actually asked my CEO that if I can do more, and he was kind enough to give me more responsibilities. But I prepared myself for that also. I went and did a course at Asian Institute of Management, which is the top business school in Asia, in finance. So because normally, the HR professionals, they know, their knowledge of finance is limited. So I prepared myself for that, and that's how I could take up the business role also. So so it was a combination of the company also deciding to give me something, and I always wanting to do more, because that was very helpful.
Before I hand over to Vishti, I'm very interested to know if you ever actually had a vision, or you were just allowing yourself to evolve. Did you sit back and say, this is where I want to end in my career? Or you were just welcoming opportunities as they were happening? How did you manage this career?
Yeah, so it was very interesting, and I must share this with you guys and with everybody. So when I started my career, because obviously, if you come from a lower middle class background, the first thing you want to do is to earn money.
Yeah.
So I think, that was the initial focus, that, I should get into a company which should give me a decent salary, where, I can improve my standard of living. But I think once I got into my first job, and later on, I realized also, when I went through some of the personality analysis, some of the tests, that I went through psychometric testing, I realized that one of the key traits of my personality is competition. So I thrive under competition. And typically in the corporate world, that's how you move up, right? Because, there are so many people, and you have to compete. And I think as I moved further in my career, I think that was one thing which kept me going, because I kept looking at what next. Can I compete with the best? And working with, probably especially GE, General Electric, helped me, because they have a culture like that, which is very aggressive in terms of, pushing performance, and then trying to get the best out of you. So that was very helpful for me. But that's how my personality changed over the years.
Wow.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Anjani, for sharing your journey. It's truly inspiring. And I've had the opportunity to work with you on a couple of assignments. So I can definitely say that I've learned a lot from you. So I would like to talk about one such assignment that I was working with you. There was this project that you had designed called Managers to Leaders. And it was that whole transformation from high potentials, how managers transition into leadership roles, and what are the competencies that they need to develop. So I would want you to share a little bit more about what are the competencies that managers need to develop. Like, for example, you took a course in finance, so those are the kind of requirements that are there. But in terms of behavioral competencies, what are the kind of competencies that managers should develop to move into leadership roles? If you could, share some of your experience around that.
No, that's good that you brought this up, because this is again one particular intervention that is very close to my heart, because I had personally designed it, and where I started working with a set of high potential employees, and take them through a journey for a period of almost a year, where I would work with them, and try to really shake them up in a manner where they start seeing that there's something inside them which can be utilized in a much better way. Because in my understanding, what I have realized is, typically the way corporates approach is, if you are doing a particular role, they evaluate you basis your performance and on that particular role.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that means that you are equally good for the next role. And there is very little investment that goes into preparing yourself for the next role. And that next role could be very different from the role that you are currently doing. And which is where a lot of times we have seen that, we have some great people, great professionals, and they get promoted by companies, but they do not succeed in the next role which is given to them. And that is where I started building this particular intervention program, whatever we may call it, a journey, where my whole idea was that you start by making the person know himself or herself better, because that's very important.
Yeah.
So while we all believe that we know everything about ourselves, but everything is there in the subconscious. Not necessarily you know that what skill would need to get applied at what time. You don't have that knowledge available to you in a framework which can actually tell you that whether you would be successful in your next job or not. So that was the whole exercise that I started building, where in the first couple of months, whoever I would work with, I would take them through this journey of knowing themselves. And sometimes to force them to know themselves, because successful people, they don't typically agree that they don't know themselves. So you have to shake them up. You have to do something where, at the end of the day, they realize that, oh, this is something which I did not know, or I could have done better. And that's where, the intervention that Mishti, you were talking about, I designed a 3-day workshop, experiential workshop, and where, people would go through some of these shocks, where, they would be put under situations which they have never experienced before. And while, everybody comes to a workshop or a training program thinking that it's a typical learning experience, you are in a room, presentations, PowerPoints, discussions. When they used to come for this kind of a program, they would get a shock, because they would never expect that something of this sort would happen with them, where at the end of the day, they are clearly being told, or they themselves are getting realized that these are some of the skills that they need to build. And then later on, the journey of next few months becomes very easy, where, see, once you have the buy-in, then people are willing to invest in themselves. But the buy-in is the most difficult part with successful professionals, because they are so headstrong. They don't agree that, I don't know this. So I think that's where, something of this sort, this intervention worked really well. And later on, when I turned entrepreneur, I used this with some of the, big corporates, and it was very successful everywhere, wherever I worked. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anjani.
So is that journey of knowing self a preparation for another next stage? Am I right? Or it was?
Absolutely.
I'm very curious, Mishti, to know. It's like, now that I know myself, and I guess you made me also know the good and the bad side of myself, or the areas of development. What next, Mishti?
So,
did you experience that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sam, for bringing this up. It's a very interesting point. In fact, when I had conducted one session in that program of Managers to Leader, it was an experiential session. And like you're aware, Sam, that I use a lot of applied theater and allied arts. So theater, again, really helps you discover who you really are. Because you can't, leaders are on their guard most of the time. They're trying to create this persona, so they get the buy-ins. So you need to shake them up, as Anjani said, and then using concepts like theater really helps them break the barriers and bring out the real self. And another thing that Anjani spoke about, which was so relevant, he spoke about understanding your own strengths and your own limitations. And of course, the shock treatment, which is very important. And one strength that Anjani, you spoke about yours is competition, right?
Yeah.
And since I've been a Gallup strengths coach, competition is one of the strengths. So are you talking about the Gallup strengths, construct? And also, if you could share some of your own more strengths of yours, because you have so much to offer that it'd be wonderful to know more about you.
No, absolutely. So this exactly was the Gallup model which I spoke about, because there was a time when I used to be a big fan of Gallup, and then I had done a lot of work with Gallup also, but sadly, of late, they did not upgrade their model, and then there are other players, who actually became more relevant in the context. But this was, Gallup Strengths Finder, which I was talking about, where competition was my number one strength. So, but apart from that, I think there are a few other things which I personally feel, and then let me go beyond the Gallup model per se. Uh, so, so one thing I very strongly believe in, and more from a corporate perspective, or otherwise also, in my entrepreneurial journey also. What is your so if I look at anything, I think what is critical for me to understand is that what is the value that I am bringing in. So if a company is paying me $100, either as a salary or as a consulting fee, am I in a position to give back $500 or $1,000? So that is one thing, which works very, 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 I work on this principle where, what is the real value addition that you are making to anything that you are doing. So even for this show, right, if we are talking, if we are spending this time, and if people are coming and listening to us, what is the takeaway? What are they going back with, right? That's very important for me, because otherwise, fine, it's a nice conversation, but beyond that, it's nothing, right? So this whole approach of adding value, supporting people. So I'll give you one example. So I worked with on an assignment with the Mahindra Group, which is Sam, one of the largest tractor manufacturing company in the world.
We know them. They are here in South Africa as well.
Okay, lovely. So so now when you are number one, right, there is no competition. So then how do you grow? That was their challenge. So they called me actually for consultation, and the head of the tractor division actually met me, and he said that while we are happily growing at 4%, 5% every year, but we are not seeing that exponential jump. How do I grow 50%, 100%, right? Can we do something? And what I did is I designed an intervention for them where, I worked with their, and this was primarily India focused. So they had 19 senior sales professionals within the country. So I worked with these 19 people for 1.5 years. And the mandate clearly was that, we will evaluate the performance of this program by how much the sales actually increases during this period. So we're not talking, because normally, when you're talking of a behavioral intervention, you talk about, some behavioral outputs. But here we were talking about a clear business measure, that if I'm selling 100 tractors today, how many more will I be able to sell after 1.5 years? And this actually became a case study where after 1.5 years, their sales in India doubled. And this got published in a lot of publications, their internal case study, they made a video and then all that stuff. But and this was, I'm not just saying that it was just as a result of this intervention itself, they would have done few other things also. But I think this is the most satisfying part of working on something where you are able to clearly demonstrate the benefit that can come out of it. So if somebody with whom I have worked, and these 19 people, frankly speaking, I have become a coach for, lifelong coach for them, because I worked with them for 1.5 years, and they come back to me now for everything, and they have all grown in life. They have done amazingly well. But this is a great story, right? And this is the power of contribution. So I always focus on that aspect. So that's another.
Do you always know where to start when you are given a new group of people to take them through interventions, or do you allow yourself to be led by where the team is, or where do you start?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good question, Sam, because I think so. One, I very strongly believe in output-based coaching. So so it's clearly while we may have a desired output, which we need to achieve, but my work is always about taking people on a journey,
Mm.
and I always work with people on a time spaced intervention. I
Mm.
never do something which is one off,
Yeah.
because when you do something one off, yes, you can create a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, and people go back. But the reality is that in after a week or 10 days, that whole excitement goes down, and then
Mm.
you're not able to measure the real outcome. But
Mm.
if you work with people for with them for 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 year, then you can clearly see that journey. And let me tell you from my experience that if I work with probably 100 people, not all of them would make the same kind of progress, and that's a reality.
Yeah.
But what I've seen is that at least 75% of the people, they
Mm.
make tremendous progress, and the balance 25 also move. At least they make some movement.
Yeah.
So if others take 15 steps, some of them will take at least 5 steps, so that is also equally good. But it's all about helping an individual move, take at least few steps from where he or she is.
Wow. So it's a known fact that what you call the Big Bang events or interventions don't really make huge lasting impact. You need to buy and invest on a journey of 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then you are able to have a current state and then the future state when you have done the entire journey. Is that what I hear? Is that what you use in your success coaching model?
Absolutely, absolutely. And another interesting thing I'll tell you, that when I turned entrepreneur and I went to my first client, obviously I had no body of work. I was a corporate professional, and again we worked together and we defined an outcome which was to be achieved in 1 year's time. And my client told me that, would it be okay if I only pay you if I achieve this outcome? And I said, absolutely fine, no problem. So for the first time, the client had seen somebody who was willing to put his neck on the line, saying you
Yeah.
only pay if I achieve this.
Wow.
So that really helps. That builds your credibility.
Mm. Mm.
And
Sure.
one of the reasons I'm sharing these examples and more for the listeners is because uh, see, when we are working with people as coaches or consultants, uh, I think it's not just about what you bring into the table. It's more about what the other side is going to experience, and
Mm-hmm.
how,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of language which works with the client.
Mhm.
That is what everybody has to understand to become more effective, more engaging, more client facing.
In those interventions, sorry, Mr. In those interventions, what dominates? Is it your coaching approach, or is it your consulting approach, or is it a combination of all this?
So typically it's all about how many touch points you want to create.
Mhm.
uh, because if you're working for 1 year with suppose 20 people, so during a 12-month period, how many touch points you want to create? And it could be a mix of probably 9 coaching sessions, and then maybe 3 workshops or 4 workshops. And then so that's how typically, depending on the need of the organization, and it also depends on what is the layer of the organization with which you are engaging. So if you are at a very senior level, it's more coaching based. If you are
Mm.
at a mid and lower level, I think you need few workshops where you want to bring in people together, have that feeling of togetherness. So it's all very, very customized to that extent.
Mm.
Yes,
Mm.
it's wonderfully said, Anjani. It's a lot about customization, actually, and in fact, I've seen this in India that the L&D vertical or the HR vertical, they have an agenda which is top down, that comes from the leadership, and they need to drive the agenda. So you need to align the goals, the journey, a lot with the organizational vision, or what the strategy is. You've
Mm.
also worked globally, so do you see the same approach in different countries, or there is a difference in approaches when it comes to customization?
No, so it's very important to be sensitive towards the local needs, local behaviors. So I told you guys that I was managing a role in Singapore as well. Now, the way typically we speak in India, and the way we are open, the way we talk, it never used to work that way in Singapore, right? It's more structured. You ask very specific questions, you get very specific answers. So I had to change my style. Even forget training or coaching. Even in a normal managerial leadership role, I had 30 people who were working with me in Singapore. Now, the way I would work with the same people in an Indian environment, I would work very differently with them. I had another, I think, 25 people based out of London, and then 30 people in New York and LA. They were also working with me. So it was a very amazing experience of working with people in different cultures and very different style, right? Like, even with my team, which was in London versus the team which was in LA, they would be very different, right? In London, probably after Friday afternoon, nobody would be available till Monday morning. While people in India, we don't care about the weekends, and if there's a need, we would be there. Similarly, in US also, in both New York and LA, the kind of people we had, they had very different sensibilities. Even in my current role at MX Player, I have around 125 people based out of China. Now, and they are all techies, and brilliant people, right? But, there's a very different communication style I have to use with them. So it's very, very, very localized. You need to be sensitive towards the needs. Yes, sir.
I'm very glad you are mentioning this. There is this assumption that as coaches, we can coach anywhere in the world. And when we want to grow our markets, we say, I'm coaching on the digital platforms online. I'm available. It doesn't matter where you are. Now, what I hear you say is that be careful, because cultures matter.
Yes, they do.
And you might be a good coach, but you coach in a particular cultural context. Maybe let's spend some time there. And you, Mishti, as well. You very much you like diversity and inclusion, but many a times I think we talk theories. I have spent time in Europe, and then I worked for an American company, but I was reporting into Dubai. And then when we meet as Middle East Africa, I used to think, my God, no school prepares you for this.
Yes.
So is there something for the coaches there to underline, in your view, not to take things for granted, that because you are a ICF certified coach, now you have got a license to go anywhere in the world and coach?
So Sam, interestingly, while I would have coached more than 5,000 people, but I have no certification. I only have experience.
Yeah.
So that's the amazing part, because I think, what experience teaches you, nothing else can teach you like that.
Yeah.
So that's very
Good
important.
point. Yeah.
And
so on yes, Anjani, you were saying, please carry on.
Yeah, and secondly, I think as you rightly said, this cultural part. See, in my view, when we are dealing with people, if we don't understand, from where they are coming, and that involves even the culture, the history. How do we expect that we would be able to coach them, right? Because coaching is all about understanding the individual. So to figure out the basic motivation of that person. So look at it. Even for that matter, let me bring one more example of somebody. If somebody is there from Japan, right? Now the cultural fabric is very different. We are talking of a lifetime employment, a very different concept. The way culturally they operate, right? Or if we go back to even some of the other countries in Europe, right? France or Germany, right? Those cultures are also very different. So if we want to be truly global in our approach, and we want us to probably engage with everybody, then we have to first become global as
Yeah.
coaches,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? So if we stay local and try to engage with a global community, I think that
Mhm.
is not going to help.
Mhm.
This is a good point, Mishti. You and I
Yes.
are coaches, and most of us we are, if I may use the word, we are baked by the local conditions. And then I'm
Yes.
very interested in how do we become global? I mean, you have raised
Yes.
something very, very interesting. The
Yes. I would
desire
like
is there to be global, but how do we become global? Where do you start?
Wonderfully said, Sam. That's wonderfully said. And I think Anjani is also doing a lot of work on helping people be digital coaches and trying to, he's written articles on how to really digitize your coaching business and how to really be global and keep pace with the digital ways and the construct there. So, Anjani, if you can talk a little bit about that, and also, you've been talking about empathy, about understanding people. So is empathy, or are there more values like empathy that can bridge the gap between diversity in different cultures and working styles? So two areas that we can spend some time on: how to digitize and be more global in that sense. That is one area. And secondly, more values besides empathy that can break cross cultural barriers and create more harmonious conversations in coaching.
And then maybe let me add on top of that to make it a little
Yes,
bit more comprehensive. Let's
yes,
take the two countries, the two cultures. I mean, we have a practical example here. I'm here in
yes.
South Africa. I'm very much familiar with South African cultural diversity, maybe Indian culture of South African origin. But of course, a
Yes.
little bit of exchange with some Indians that we work in
Mm,
global commons. And now you are sitting in India. Are there
mm,
things that you think we must start looking at that are common? Are there things that are not common? How do we, for instance, create an environment for coaches, irrespective of whether they are from India or from South Africa, to function in this type of cultures? Not that there's any particular reason. I'm just out as a case study.
No, and that's a very very valid question, Sam, because what is also happening is, uh, while otherwise also the world was becoming more and more one, and acceptability of people from different cultures and as coaches or as professionals uh, has increased a lot. But
Mm,
especially with respect to this pandemic, the lockdown, the virtual working, I think now those boundaries are completely gone, right?
mm,
And
mm,
that's where and that's where I wrote that article which Misty was is talking about, where
mm,
I wrote about how you can become a digital trainer or a coach in this world, because many people I know who was so amazing in a physical environment, but they actually were not able to cope up with the sort of the digital engagement which is now required.
mm,
Just imagine,
mm,
if I'm used to coaching somebody, I'm used to sitting with somebody, talking for a couple of hours and then giving inputs, and suddenly I have to use a Zoom or a Google Hangout. uh, to establish a similar level of connect, it's not possible for everybody. So a lot of people were struggling, and that's where I created something. you know Even the tools, what are the right tools to use, right? Because we all had to learn new things, how to use them, how to make them effectively useful for both the parties. So that's one part of it. The key here is, if I'm a coach, right, or if I'm a consultant, if I'm coming with a belief that I hold an upper hand compared to the other side,
mm,
that's where I go wrong. So if I'm sitting in Mumbai, and you are in South Africa, and if we are engaging, and if I come with a belief that so I have coached 5,000 people, so what is so great about this?
mm,
That is where the problem lies. So if I want to engage with a community in South Africa, I need to read about South Africa. If possible, visit some of the key cities there. Uh, Engage with people. I have personally and spent so much time in I would have visited more than 50 countries, and have spent a lot of time with all these cultures. So if when I was given the responsibility to manage people in Singapore, every month I used to spend 15 days in Singapore because it was new to me. While one can say that it's still Asia, you are in India, and then how it is so different. No, it is very different. When I had to do a huge project in UK, I spent couple of months just staying there, interacting with the working teams there. Because otherwise, how would you expect me to lead that team, which I don't understand culturally? And that is where I realized that if I have to get work out of them, it's only the weekdays where they will work, and they'll work with all the best efforts. But I should not trouble them over the weekend, and those cultural sensitivities, and that's how I could deliver those projects. So I think from a coaching perspective also, the rules are the same. I'll give you one example. When I used to work at Sony, the Sony Corporation from US sent a very, very well-known coach to have a session with us, the leadership team in India. And this gentleman was a retired army veteran, very, very famous person. But when he started engaging with us, one of the things he used to do is to tell us that if we have a point of view, we would speak, and that's how typically in Indian culture we do, because we don't keep things inside. Now this gentleman would say that first question he would say, are you open for coaching? Obviously you would say yes. And then he would say, if I'm coaching you, you're not supposed to speak. And we said, but that's not how it works. But he came from a military background. That's how he used to work there. Probably, because he achieved that kind of status in the coaching world also. So people would listen to him, they would not question. But here he was sitting with, some 10, 12 people who would not be willing to listen to him. And he had such a tough time for 3 days working with this gentleman. And finally, we managed that whole, intervention and all that stuff. But it was not a very pleasant kind of a thing, because what we came back with the feeling that, while we were told what we are supposed to do, but we were not heard. And that's not a good feeling to have as a coachee.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, very, very insightful.
Wonderful.
Very insightful.
Yes. Yes, wonderfully said. I mean, I think it talks about the statement that first seek to understand, then seek to be understood. And I hear you when you say that, you spend so much time with cultures, with people, with organizations, trying to understand what is it that they really need, what they really seek, be it from the business ROI context, or be it from value addition in terms of the competencies that are required. So there's this huge desire in you, to motivate people, to empower them, and have a very pragmatic, hands-on approach while doing that. So I'm just curious to know, where does this desire to motivate people come from? Where does it really come from?
No, so I think somewhere I still consider myself a student of organizational behavior and human resources. That's I love understanding people, interacting with them. If you still leave me with a group of 15, 20 people, I can spend 3-4 days talking only. So and people will not get bored. So that much I can ensure. But one thing which really works at the core of it is that desire to contribute to people's life. So like, I'll give you one example. While I was an entrepreneur, obviously, it was my business. And but today, when I'm again back in a corporate role and working for a company, I still, over the weekend, I have so many people who reach out to me, and I still try to help them. obviously I don't charge anything, and being in a corporate role, I'm not supposed to charge anything. So, but
Yeah.
still, that desire to help is very much there. So whenever, from all my previous companies or whoever, random people, you'll be surprised. I keep getting calls through LinkedIn, where people will just ask for my number, call me, and say that, oh, I'm stuck in my corporate career at this point. What are the right decisions? What do you suggest? And I help them.
Mm.
So that's there is a genuine
So
desire.
you live up to the expectation that HR is a helping profession. You
Absolutely.
help
And
before you earn your money.
so Sam, any if something has given you so much in life, you need to give back also. So
Mhm.
that's very important.
Wow, beautiful,
Very important.
beautiful. Um, you mentioned that you love organizational behavior and human resources. Is that how you see it as a package of who you are professionally, plus coaching, I assume?
So that helps me, Sam, in terms of contributing at a larger business level also, because as a part of the business team also, when I work, most of the problems what you realized is related to people only. And so today, when I advise my CEO, uh, I think his core issue is managing his leadership team and helping them perform to the best level possible, right?
Mm.
If that happens, business will automatically grow. So I think that is where what I realized is that it's not just about, while I may be a student of organizational behavior and human resources, but that's so core to the larger business context, that I'm able to contribute in any area.
Mhm.
So that really helps me in terms of, even, and plus, obviously, the larger understanding of how a business works. And there also, you just need to know two things. One, where you are spending money, and where you are earning money. If you understand these two things, I think you can run a business.
Yeah.
So, so for
Mhm.
7 years, I ran four businesses, and this is what I learned at the end of it. That if you can
Mhm.
fix these two part, and where if you are earning more than what you are spending, I think the life is sorted.
Yes.
When we come back, we're gonna be taking a break, and then we'll come back. I
Mhm.
want you to take us through your transition into entrepreneurship,
Sure, sure.
and how coaching can be used to capacitate entrepreneurs. And I would like us to speak to the topic of coaching. We call this show Applied Professional and Executive Coaching 101. And there's a reason for that. We want not just to sit with executive coaching, but we want to look at the applied areas of coaching. In this case,
Mhm.
entrepreneurship is an area of big need in our, I guess, in our two countries. Will you agree with me?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes,
great.
definitely.
We will take a very short break for 5 minutes, and then we will be back on these two topics. And I want us to drill it down a little bit more. I'm fascinated by the fact that you managed to transition from the organizational behavior, human resources into entrepreneurship. And I'm told that you have established many enterprises as well. It will be good to hear what were your lessons from doing that.
Sure.
Will be
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank